You see, this is my life. It always will be. There's nothing else. Just us. And the cameras. And those wonderful people out there in the dark.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Out There in the Dark. My name is Tom Alexander, and with me is Azad Majid.
Am I really with you, though?
In some spiritual sense.
So I'm not
if
physically
not the
here.
physically, No, he's AI.
I have
today.
lost some weight, it's true. Thank you, Tom.
No, you're welcome.
Yeah.
So today's episode is going to be really interesting because Azad and I have been talking a lot about films that we used.
That's just my son Django making noise in the background. We
Yeah.
should just incorporate him into the show.
We should.
Yeah.
We should do a remix.
He likes to make a lot of noise while we're doing this show. It's okay.
Specifically.
Yeah.
So we're going to be talking about two films that we used to love, but now don't love as much.
Yeah. Is there any movie that I used to love and now hate? I couldn't really find one like that.
No, not exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't find anything that I actually loathe now that I like, which speaks well, actually, of my my impeccable taste.
There was one, I know it just popped in my head. There was one that, it was only within a couple of years, but I remember the first time I saw Paul Thomas Anderson's Magnolia, I thought, oh my God, this movie is a masterpiece. And then 2 years later, I rewatched it and goes, what the hell is this crap? It's like, anyway.
Yeah. So I do have.
I
I had one that popped into my head too, but this is not like I. This was like, okay, this is what happened. I saw The Color Purple with the Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
Color Purple with Whoopi and the whole thing, right? And I was so emotionally affected by the movie the first time I saw it. Then I saw it again on TV a couple of years later, and I was like, I felt raped at that. I was like, what? I fell for every one of those crappy, corny, syrupy, terrible things that Spielberg always does.
I haven't seen it since it came out. And I remember in my memory, and of course, how old was I? 15 or something? And
you were probably 15.
Yeah. And I remember thinking it was a good film.
Well, okay.
But I don't
We have to
remember
do
anything about it, and I'm sure if I rewatched it, I'd have, because he is such a manipulative filmmaker.
Yeah, he's super.
And when he
that
does
movie
straight
is super,
drama,
yeah.
I mean, he's done a couple of really good straight dramas like Lincoln or Bridge of Spies, but
I haven't seen that one.
but many of them, like Empire of the Sun, even I remember that as being kind of schmaltz.
Yeah, I don't even remember. I barely remember that one.
But
yeah.
anyway.
Well, we could do another show, maybe.
I'd love to do a Spielberg show.
Spielberg show, because I've always had so many problems with Spielberg, even though I recognize his skill, and his talent as a filmmaker.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a saying, I don't know, there's a saying in another language which translates to, you give the milk, but you put some shit in it, right?
But this is a good transition to, because Spielberg had a relationship with the filmmaker we're going to be talking about today.
A relationship? Ooh.
Well, AI. Remember the movie AI?
Ooh.
What's the dirt, Tom? Anyway.
You mean they was gay with each other? No? Okay.
No.
That's not what you mean?
Stop.
Okay.
Stop. So as Azad and I were talking about movies that we used to love but don't love so much anymore, two films kept coming up, and they're both by the same director.
Yeah, that's right. Stanley Kubrick is the name, the reveal. Yes. Which was interesting because we were both like, if I could think of one movie. So I said, if I could think of one movie, it might be Lolita, Stanley Kubrick's 1962 movie of Nabokov's novel of Lolita. And Tom said, the one that he has a problem with, and he's crazy, is The Shining. So he said he liked it originally, and now he doesn't like it anymore
as much.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
so
I kind of, I don't.
So
really
we're gonna really just tear each other new assholes on this one, right? That's what this is.
I have a feeling you're
like
going to tear me
WW.
because I'm kind of. Well, anyway, let's
I think
not
Lolita
give
is
stuff away.
less contentious.
It's less contentious, generally speaking. It's not really part of the Kubrick conversation that much. People talk about other films of his, not so
Yeah,
much.
it's a kind of forgotten one.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's jump right into it.
Well,
shall
what's
we?
great too is that both Azid and I rewatched the film
Lolita, yeah.
Lolita this weekend,
Yeah.
and why don't you, since you thought of it, Azid, why don't you tell us about your
My history with
your
Lolita.
history with Lolita.
Don't call the police.
Yeah.
So my history with Lolita is I saw the movie first, right? When I was, I think, in my 20s maybe. And I loved it. I was, it's like kind of in the Doctor Strangelove area for Kubrick, where it's like very satirical. And it seems maybe when you read the novel later, which I didn't do until like a few years ago, and I'm 60, right? So, really, really late. But what he did, Kubrick, and this had a lot to do with the Hays Code and like all kinds of Christian, groups and stuff. The book had been banned and considered basically like pornography until a few authors had put them on their best sellers list and stuff. Just a brief history of Lolita for people who may not know that much about it, right? So it had already been a very controversial book, but it was a bestseller, right? And it became very, very big. Kubrick and his partner Harris, they had optioned the book and they wanted to do it. But, how are you going to do this story about a main character who, has this fetishized fascination with a preteen girl, right? I think she's supposed to be 12 in the book.
In the book she's 12, in the film she's 14.
She's 14, yeah.
And that was the linchpin of the entire marketing campaign, was how did they make a movie about Lolita?
That was the poster.
That was the poster, that
Yeah.
was the trailer,
Yep.
because the book was considered so unfilmable.
Yeah, and so when I saw it, though, like I didn't know about the book that much. I knew about the book, but I hadn't read it. So, I just thought, oh, what a clever, satirical black comedy, a way to really handle this material, right? That would otherwise be very like nauseating and difficult to sit through, right? So yeah, I loved it. Then I read the book, like I said, just recently, and I was just like, oh my God, like, it's a totally different book, right? So, and the approach, like the book is very serious, right? Like it's funny too. It's very funny. In not in a similar kind of way, but Kubrick, there's actually slapstick parts in it, and and kind of old bits and stuff like that.
Well,
and,
the Peter Sellers character, the way he's portrayed.
Yeah, he's like a cartoon, right? And and even that sequence where they bring the cot in and they're like trying to open it up, it's like an old time like vaudeville sketch. So it's not just that it's witty, sophisticated humor. There's a lot of real lowbrow humor in it, right? Which is we'll talk about why that is, maybe, right? But anyway, so my history is that after I read the book, then I was like, oh man, that movie is terrible compared to this book, because the book is so resonant and so beautifully written, and you really get into the whole mindset of Humbert, that's the character, and it's just more of a literary exercise, right? The book, the part of the book is that it's innovative in the way it's written and told.
The language is incredible.
The language is incredible, considering he was like Russian, right? And so blah blah blah. I loved the book, and I was like, this movie sucks, right? Like I really was like, I was mad at the movie, because what happened was, me and my son Ishmael, we read the book together, like we were reading it at the same time, so we could have like our book club about it.
That's
and then
great.
and then after that we watched the movie. So a few years ago I had watched the movie and I was like, man, that sucks. And he didn't like it either, because he had just finished reading the book. And so I was telling you about this, and then I watched it again last night. And now I kind of feel halfway between both positions.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because there's some absolutely great stuff in Lolita, I have to say, right?
Right.
Just like beautiful filmmaking, like if you're at all into movies, there's a dimension of cinema where it's just like you're in the hands of a master, and you can tell, right? Just the way things are framed and the way they're lit and the way that, they're emphasized and all that kind of stuff. So, so that's where I am with Lolita right now.
Well, it sounds to me like maybe you like it a bit more now than even I do.
Interesting.
I mean, because I read the book first. I read the book in my 20s, and it was immediately like, this is one of the greatest novels I've ever read. And to me, it was so much about the obsessive nature of love, but it was like couched in this pedophilia story, when it wasn't really about pedophilia.
It's
That's
actually
how I felt.
Just to correct you, apparently it's hebephilia.
That's true. Yeah.
Because that's
But
I
nobody
think
knows that
pedophilia is prepubescent.
Yeah.
And hebephilia is pubescent. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I mean,
Between
she's 12,
11 and 14, I think.
I mean, yeah. But
That's the clinical diagnosis. Yes.
No.
Yeah.
So I didn't see the film until about 10 years ago. I bought a Stanley Kubrick Blu-ray box set, and it was one of 2 movies I hadn't seen on the set, that and Barry Lyndon. And I thought the movie was okay. I didn't love it. And I didn't rewatch it until today, when I feel like I liked it a bit more than when I saw it the first time, but I've got a lot of problems with it, and I don't think it quite works.
Yeah. So I think you're at where I was soon after I read the book, although I hated it then. I was mad at it, right? Because I thought, in a way, I almost felt like, oh, Kubrick, you're such a smart ass. You took all the beauty out of this story. But at the same time, considering what the story is, he couldn't get, he couldn't get into that kind of thing, like what the novel can achieve through a kind of reader to narrator kind of relationship. But, considering that his approach, right, he is still kind of getting at the same kinds of things, but he's doing it in this satirical way, right?
Yeah.
He's making more fun of Humbert.
He is.
Right? So you're laughing at him and you pity him, right? He's a pitiful character.
I was surprised by the end of it when he, sees, visits her when she's married and is pregnant. How moving the scene was.
Yeah, because he still
loves
he still loves her.
I found it
right?
very touching, and I felt like most of the film, you are kind of like aghast at him. He's, not only is he, sexually involved with a 14-year-old, but he's incredibly jealous. He's possessive. He's abusive, obviously, and at the end, he's lost all of his power, and is completely broken.
He's a murderer at the end,
and
right?
then he kills
Quilty. Yeah,
Quilty. So, there were parts that I really liked. I think my problem, for one thing, it is kind of a fool's game to keep comparing a novel to a movie, because in most cases the novel is going to be superior, because it just can do so much more with language and character. But the best adaptations, I think Kubrick was trying to do this here, to your point about the satirical quality of it.
Yeah.
Trying to add that element to it, because he could not show everything that.
No, he couldn't. He couldn't. I read an interview where he basically said, that he regretted that he couldn't eroticize the movie more, which is what there was a remake done in by Adrian Lyne.
It's like in the 90s.
The 90s with Jeremy Irons, and that's a lot more faithful to the book. But it's a good movie too. It's fine, but it's not memorable at all. But the thing about Kubrick's version is it's got so much going on all the time. It's really well crafted, because what he does in the movie that's very different from the book is the ending scene in the book is the first scene in the movie, right? So the first scene is and you know, if you don't know the story, you don't know what's going on. But you see the James Mason character Humbert going up to this like palatial kind of falling apart mansion. He goes in. There's Claire Quilty, played by Peter Sellers, and there's this bizarre scene where you're not sure what's going on, and then he just kills him. And I love the way they do the murder in that,
Yeah.
like through the painting.
And
that is fucking genius. Because Kubrick is brilliant at that. Like his symbolism is very, very subtle at times, but like he crawls behind a painting of a young
girl.
woman, of a young girl, and the last shot hits her right in the face, and that kills. And there's this beautiful shot of it, right? And it's like it's the whole movie wrapped up in one image like that, right?
And what's great about that scene too is Peter Sellers' performance and the way it's written, because he goes from like being, you know, pretending like he doesn't know why he's there. He knows when you watch the movie by the end of it, and if you think back, he knows immediately why Humbert is there, but he's pretending like he doesn't, and then he becomes. And he never stops talking. It's just a constant stream of words. And
right.
He becomes a little scared, but then he becomes more aggressive.
Well,
then he's playing the piano. He turns his back on him, even though Mason has a gun.
Well, he's like this kind of, so that's a really interesting thing about what I really enjoyed about Kubrick's version this time that I didn't think about so much is the parallels between Quilty and Humbert, right?
But isn't that very apparent in the novel?
It's apparent in the novel, but Quilty is not much of a character in the novel, right? Like you never have any scenes with Quilty except one, maybe. And
in a way, if I remember correctly, and I haven't read the novel since my 20s, Quilty is sort of depicted as more the pervert. Because
that's exactly right. He's like, so this is what I noticed in the movie that he doesn't do in the book, but Kubrick pulls this part out. And it's interesting because it kind of gets at the same thing, which is that he's really looking at two kinds of people with the same sickness, but different in the sense that with Humbert, he really has those genuine feelings. I mean, as wrong as they are, whatever, he is in love with her, right? It's love. With Quilty, he's like pure nihilist. Like he's a pure evil dude, right? He's just playing with people. Like he takes her too, right?
Yeah.
But, and really she's in love with him for the whole thing. That's why behind the painting is just genius, right? He's behind it all, right? So, but it's like he's a different kind of evil. Right, he's banal, like the banality of evil. He's like the kind of like worst thing.
He's very narcissistic. He's manipulating people all the time.
He does it for the thrills, which is why you said he doesn't really remember him when he comes, or that he's pretending he doesn't remember. I don't know that he's pretending. I think he's so decrepit, like that house, right?
Right.
He's becomes so like lost in his partying, that. He probably doesn't. It's like he's not even important to him. He's done this to a million people.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's for him. It's just his way of life. Like he doesn't give a shit about people that way, right? So.
And in a way, Quilty kind of fits into the milieu of the film more because there's these subtle allusions to these perversions throughout other characters. Yeah. So remember the high school dance where the other couple that are friends with.
The broad-minded.
We're more broad-minded, right? These guys are swingers. And, and then there's also allusions that Shelley Winters, who plays Lolita's mother, is too permissive with her, Like,
who knows what she's let her see, but she's had men coming in and stuff like that.
Well, the whole Quilty thing, because Quilty was seeing
her first, Well, that's the thing. Like the whole story is just so fascinating about like the doubling there, right? And in the book, because you don't get to know Quilty at all, except through the paranoia of this character, or I'm sure it's real, but he almost seems like a ghost.
Yeah.
And
like a phantom figure of himself.
Exactly. He's being chased by his own evil self, or whatever however you want to put that, right? But so it's interesting because Kubrick. I noticed this too, and I mean, to be totally honest, I watched a video on YouTube about Lolita, and this guy made a really interesting point that it's very much in keeping with the rest of Kubrick's work, right?
Right.
Because he's always interested in the paradox of good and evil within one person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who's driven towards horrible things, but not because they're inherently evil,
Right.
but because of some other.
I think Barry Lyndon is an excellent example of that.
Barry Lyndon is like that. Shining is like that. You
I don't know
know.
about that.
Okay, well, we'll have to
We'll
talk
talk about
it.
that
Well,
later.
why don't
Yeah.
we just we can move on to The Shining if you want, and just
Well, I was gonna suggest some of the issues I had with the film. I mean,
Okay.
besides not quite, which is of course, like I said, unfair for me to say he doesn't do what the novel does, because I mean, who can? But as skilled as the filmmaking was, there were moments that I felt maybe Kubrick didn't have quite the mastery that he showed, even in earlier films like Paths of Glory or even Spartacus, where I felt the music felt overdone. I felt like technically, I don't know, it just wasn't quite, didn't have the focus.
no,
I felt.
it's not like I don't agree. I think that there are moments like that, but it's either something that you like. For me, it made me laugh,
Mhm.
and
It's very fun. In fact,
I think
Peter
it's very-
Sellers even does like an early Doctor Strangelove bit,
yeah,
kind of,
the
right?
Dr. Zempf or whatever, right? Yeah, and it's very funny, but like, yeah, but the music is and I think I remember David Lynch talking about.
It's his favorite Kubrick film.
I think he talked about the opening image, which is and the music, and it does remind me of Twin Peaks. Right? That kind of very like orchestral, beautiful, almost it's kitsch,
You
right?
mean like the opening credits of the show?
No, like more like just like when he has those kind of more stringy kind of like very
Kind of
airy.
melodramatic, but
Yeah, he pulls that kind of like
to me it was like a Douglas Sirk kind of thing in
yeah,
Twin Peaks.
well,
But
yeah. Well, but I think I think you're right. I think Lynch said this was his favorite Kubrick movie.
it was, yeah.
Yeah. And I understand that there is something
Mm-hmm.
Lynchian in this movie
It's
too,
true, very much.
like the performances, like and the evil, like the kind of the darkness. It's in there, like
Yeah, no, it's there's an underbelly in the film that you could say is very much like a Blue Velvet, for example.
absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah, it definitely has that.
The community there's an underbelly, not
Well, there's
just,
that whole thing, like you're saying, like the couple that's asking to.
that weird. The dance is weird. It's a high school dance, but there's more adults than teenagers.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly. And there's this underlying kind of sexual perversion, or they're calling it sexual liberation, right?
Mhm.
And so there's a real critique there of sort of pretentious people who try to kind of box outside their weight a little bit.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
she's Shelley Winters is the mother. She's like talking. She's trying to act all. We go into the art, the this and that. And she says, trying to be impressive to James Mason, that she's into art and culture and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But she's a bit of that's an interesting character to talk about, the Shelley Winters character, because she's so pathetic, right?
Once again, poor Shelley Winters
She's
gets killed by
always-
her husband
Yeah,
halfway through the
I know
movie.
that's her whole
Place
thing.
in the Sun,
She's
Night of the
perfect.
Hunter.
Yeah, she's perfect at that because you want her to be killed.
kind of.
That's the whole
And
thing.
and the other, not Night of the Hunter so much, but definitely Place in the Sun. You feel like like-
because she's in Lolita, she's what's the word, clingy, like
Yeah.
she's got that needy attachment thing that you
there's
just
jealousy and this, if you don't believe in God, I'm gonna kill myself.
yeah, and just like the way she treats Lolita, because you're and that's a great thing about the movie. That's what I mean about being in the hands of a master too.
Sure.
You're like, think about that excellent scene where he gets the letter that she's left for him, and he's sitting on her bed, on Lolita's bed, and he's reading it. And first he's been crying because and then he reads it, and he just
He's laughing.
this contemptuous laughter, because she's saying how much she loves him, and and stuff, and he realizes the laugh is so I love when movies are like this. There's so many different ways to read it. One is that it's a laugh of like, derision. The other one is that it's kind of a laugh of him putting his, like, I can do my plan now.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it's genuine joy
It's
mixed with contempt.
yeah.
You know,
These things keep happening that makes it so much. That keeps making it easier for him to get to Lolita.
right?
You know,
Which is
he
why
can marry the Shelley Winters. Then she runs out into the street and gets hit by a car.
while
so
he's
now,
making her a drink. Such an
when he was
odd-
just gonna like try to kill her before.
exactly.
What did you think of Sue Lyon?
So okay, she's kind of interesting. Like, she's not great. Like, I don't find her great. Like, she just seems like not like, she doesn't seem believable sometimes, right?
I thought she was pretty believable. I thought she was quite good. I was surprised. I didn't remember liking her performance that much.
Yeah, I don't.
But I felt it was a pretty good mix of seeming childish, although again, going back to the novel, she should be younger and she should act younger.
Yeah,
Because what's lost in the film is simply that because she's older, she's clearly,
she's just
sexually active.
That was
to
a
a
very
certain degree.
That was a very deliberate thing. Actually, I read this in an article, in an interview with Stanley Kubrick, where basically he said it was never going to be passed.
No.
So they decided that the important thing was to make sure that Lolita was sexually enticing to everybody,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's why they picked Sue Lyons, because she, even though she was only 14, she was more developed,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so they basically, I'm
She
not
could
even
pass,
I'm not
basically.
even joking that they literally said, well, you can have a younger girl, but she has to have breasts,
Right.
right? So the whole point was, which is really weird and paradoxical if you think about it. The whole point was, they're like, you can do this movie about this, like, fetish of a prepubescent girl, but the girl just has to be sexually attractive for everybody. Right?
So greasy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it
Welcome
worked.
to Hollywood in the 60s.
But it
baby.
works. It works because
It-
because
To me, it doesn't quite work in the film. To me,
no, it works.
loses
It
that.
works for what he was trying to do, which is that
Yeah.
he was trying to not focus the audience on the nauseating imagery that you would see
Mhm.
a 50-something-year-old man with a girl who hasn't even started to develop.
Right.
Right. A literal child, right? That would be very difficult to handle. That'd be like a Todd Solondz movie,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
So, which is not pleasant, right? So he knew he couldn't do that, and I think so. That was a very deliberate idea to
Mhm.
sexualize her,
I get it.
so that you don't focus on that, and you can focus on the concept of the obsessive love story, right?
Right.
Yeah. Was there other things that you had problems with?
It has this weird ending, like after he leaves Lolita, and then it cuts back to he's gonna kill Peter Sellers, and then it does this epilogue. He died in jail. The end.
Yeah.
It just was. It just was like, why did they? It so obviously didn't need to be there.
Well,
it's like when a movie has a great ending,
yeah,
and then they just screw it up in the last 10
like The
seconds.
Departed.
Like The Departed.
With that fucking rat.
Did you know there was a campaign?
Yes, I saw. And the thing is, I was
You
like,
can do it, Marty.
100%.
You can take the rat out.
Yeah. You spent like $100 million.
You have the
making
technology
De Niro
now.
younger.
But he won't take the rat
Won't
out
take
of
the
the
rat
end.
out. Yeah.
He loves the rat. He said that. He said, I don't care. I love it.
Okay, well, whatever. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? He did grow up in probably a rat-infested area of New York.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, maybe he made friends with some rats. You never know.
Maybe. So, do I have anything else on it? I don't think so. I mean, that pretty much, again, like, interesting film.
Yeah.
Didn't quite work for me.
Yeah, so I'm gonna watch it one more time. Probably not right away. Maybe like in a few months. I'm gonna watch it one more time, and then I'm gonna make my final assessment. Yes,
Oh, well, we should make sure we bring it up.
because I don't know whether I think it's actually now great. So I have to watch it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's great too is that, to your point about the satire, is it does kind of, it's a great previous film to Doctor Strangelove.
It is. It's in the same kind of.
It's got a
you know,
similar
It's got the sa-
skewed.
and it's very ahead of its time. That kind of satire, which was, I think back in those days they would call it adult.
Mhm.
It was like the humor was, you had to be in the know, you had to be hip to get that kind of humor. It was kind of like what The Simpsons became eventually,
Right.
right? That kind of meta, ironic referencing, things, and Lolita, they do that a lot because there's so much like American culture being thrown around, like the whole idea of like, oh, he's a playwright and he's like this artist character, like
Yeah.
queer quilty characters, like, it's
And
like,
Mason is not American, so he
no, he's old.
He sticks out.
He's
he can't-
old world Europe.
He keeps saying,
yeah.
"I can't dance. I don't know what this is."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's
He
very,
teaches French literature.
yeah, he's very proper French poetry.
Poetry.
Yeah. And, he's very stiff, and that's an interesting thing. One last thing I'll talk about is James Mason's performance is absolutely incredible, and the reason why is that you're with him, like you're basically, he's your guide through the whole movie, but there's never a point at which he seems like relaxed. You know what I mean? He's
Yeah.
always hiding. He's always about to get caught. He's always scheming. He's always doing these things, and so you're always tense. With him, and
it's nerve-wracking. No wonder he has a heart attack. Yeah.
yeah, and the thing is, because you're put in that position too, you're feeling that same unpleasant kind of feeling all the time, like this kind of like just amped up, and in some ways I think that's what Kubrick does on purpose,
Yeah.
to make you feel that way, like this kind of like this hunted criminal, right? And you even feel like, I hope he doesn't get caught. It's so, because
Yeah.
you're on his side, so to speak, right?
Which is crazy, but that's
That's the,
how many times have we seen even shows like The Sopranos or
Yeah,
Breaking Bad
of
where
course,
you want this horrible person to
right?
get
And
away
I think,
with everything.
and I think Kubrick, it was a really early. Lolita is a really early example of that kind of character, where undeniably, like, did something evil, but undeniably a likable character nonetheless, which
Sure.
is like, that's the paradox, right?
Yeah. It's the complexity of
Yeah.
people.
And Peter Sellers,
Wow.
a total genius.
Absolutely.
Wow, he was so good. Holy shit.
Oh yeah.
Because he's also so fucking hateful. Like, you really hate him.
Yeah. Right
Yeah.
from the first scene where he's dancing.
Yeah,
and
he's just got that smug, and
and
he's
when
got
he talks to him at the hotel, and he's like,
Oh yeah, that I'm a cop part. Oh
Yeah.
my god, that was, and the way he's going, like, he's like kind of like mumbling stuff. Yeah, he's like a real insect, right? And he's always got that kind of like Euro that Euro goth woman with him, you
Yeah.
know, who never says anything, right?
his voice, his accent reminded me of Kubrick.
Oh really?
Because Kubrick has a like Bronx,
Oh yeah.
kind of way of talking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We should do a whole show on Peter Sellers, to be honest.
Oh my god.
Because
Amazing.
it's like he was the only one in some ways. This is my idea. Is like in all the Kubricks he's in, right?
There's only two. I
Yeah,
think.
in the two that he's in, he does the same thing, which is he plays multiple roles,
Mhm.
right? It's almost as if like he was on an artistic equality there, with bringing something like that
Yeah.
to both of those movies, right?
Yeah. We're going to talk about is another Kubrick movie, and this is the one that I had
Start again. Sorry.
The next film we're going to talk about is another Kubrick movie, one that I kind of wanted to discuss. I first saw the movie The Shining when I was a kid. I believe it was on the ABC Sunday Night Movie.
Oh, so like totally like cut up and
Cut up and
no swearing and nothing.
no, all taken out. The scene in the bathtub is all not pixelated, but they obscured the nudity.
Okay.
And so there's little old me sitting in my pajamas on the floor watching the movie, and it terrified me.
Even so boulderized, eh?
Oh yeah, no, and I had nightmares about being axe murdered by somebody, and I just thought it was fantastic. And then in my 20s, I read the novel. No, that's not true. I think I read it as a teenager, and I recently reread it probably about 5 years ago. And The Shining is a movie I grew to dislike over the years, but one that I don't stop watching. It's a fascinating film. It's an extremely rich text, but there are so many things about it that just burn my ass.
Okay, like what? I didn't know it's so personal. Okay.
I do take it personally, and
Okay.
and again, going and similar to Lolita, The Shining is one of my favorite novels too. It's probably my favorite horror novel,
Right.
and there are elements of the novel that are very key that Kubrick just ignored or minimized greatly,
Okay.
that make it a completely different thing altogether.
Yeah, but you said yourself, like just a while ago, like, you can't compare the book to the novel.
Exactly.
Right.
I know.
Yeah. I think the movie stands on its own. I think both of the movies kind of stand on their
Sure.
own, right? And he always makes movies out of books, right? Like
Yeah.
Clockwork Orange, Barry Lyndon,
Full Metal Jacket was
Full Metal Jacket, even 2001.
Yep.
Um,
everything.
Yeah, everything's been based on a book, right? So he likes that's his thing. He likes to take a text and then interpret it his way, visualize it, right? Sometimes better than others, right? But I don't know that I think that that's like the worst thing you can say about it. There must be other things.
No, of
right?
course
Yeah.
not. No, it's not the worst thing I can say about it.
Okay, let me hear.
So, to me, The Shining is a film by a filmmaker who doesn't quite get horror, doesn't quite get. I don't want to say tropes because horror is a genre and it has certain. On one hand, there are certain rules, but on the other hand, you want to break those rules.
Right.
And to me, elements of The Shining kind of ignore the rules completely. One of them being another big problem I have related to that is the Jack Nicholson character, not just the way it's performed, because I think he goes way over the top in a way that almost makes the film comedic, which undermines, I think, the whole point of the film. But Nicholson and Shelley Duvall as well are kind of creepy right from the get-go. And so one of the important things in the novel is that it's a troubled marriage, but they're very typical, Midwestern kind of folk. They're written as being fairly attractive, smart, educated, and pleasant to be with. And then you see his degenerate over the course of the book.
Right.
Whereas in the film, Nicholson is creepy as hell from the get-go. And the transition is minimized. It's sort of washed over. And I think that's something that could have been avoided.
Yeah, so
I think it could have been a much better film if
yeah.
it had played differently.
So I've heard that kind of argument before, and I think it's valid, but I just have a different take on it, right? I read the book, but I don't remember much about it because I read it when it came out.
Yeah.
But I remember thinking it was a good book, like even then, and it definitely had more stuff about his alcoholism, how it starts, and then he's a writer, and all that stuff, right? I just think Kubrick's not interested in any of that because that's not really what he's making a movie about, right? So he's interested in, again, the paradox of evil. That's his whole shtick, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like when you really boil it down, about other things too, but I'm saying when you really boil it down, the nexus of his whole art form is the paradox of evil, like that how evil manifests in everyday people and stuff like that, right? I think that he's interested in evil just as how it works, right? But I also think that the other through line, and this is also true of Lolita, is he always has an artist figure as the main figure, right? As somebody who, it's always the artist who is sort of evil, but also think of Clockwork Orange, right? Think of Alex in Clockwork Orange, right? He's evil, but he's refined, You know,
Yeah.
he's refined. Like he loves
He's clearly super
Beethoven.
intelligent.
Yeah, he's
Loves classical music.
yeah. So he's got the artistic, aesthetic temperament, right? He even dresses like a dandy, you know, when he's going shop, you know. So he's always, and Barry Lyndon is like that too, right? Like where he's, I don't know if you can say evil, but there's something, he's driven by something kind of dark, right?
Yeah.
And
Well, he's such a narcissist.
he's
I
a
mean,
narcissist, and like he ruins everybody's life,
Exactly,
and
yeah.
his own and his sons and everybody, right? So, but he's also he's interested in that because he's also seeing that somebody like Barry Lyndon, Alex, Jack Nicholson in The Shining is like this, and I think it's I think the movie's about is about
even,
art. It's
even
about
Matthew Modine in Full Metal Jacket is a writer.
exactly.
you know.
There's a lot of them are writers, right?
Yeah.
Like even
I mean, Tom Cruise is a doctor, but still, there's
yeah.
similar idea.
Yeah, yeah. I think in Lolita though he's James Mason is a writer, right? So there's this through line of the artist who has to go, you know, as they say, dive into the depths of hell in order to find out about the abyss, you know, come back and put it down, write it out, and share it with the world. That's the, you know, whether you agree with that or not, that's the artist's journey, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what that's what I think he's interested in The Shining. He's interested in Jack Nicholson's descent not being tied to anything that you can psychologize, because he wants it to be a functioning symbol of the madness of creating great art, right?
Yeah.
I think that's what The Shining is more interested in.
I can see that. I don't think he quite achieves it in the same way that he does in other films, because again, I find Nicholson a little, well, he's pretty one note, and the character.
That's not true. I'm
I
gonna
think
kill
he
you
is.
now. I'm sorry, you have to die.
But yeah, and you know, I find the film, quite frankly, rather dull.
No,
It's overlong,
It is not dull. Okay,
and it
okay,
becomes
how can
almost
you-
like and then that one shot where he's frozen in the maze. It just makes me laugh, and it shouldn't make me laugh.
Well, okay, so
So it keeps taking me out of it, and there are moments that are incredible, like, you know, the twins. Or they're not twins; they're sisters.
Right.
But that's terrifying. The performances of Shelley Duvall and the kid are fantastic, and I love. And there's certain themes and motifs that come through that are really fascinating. The way that
I disagree with you about Jack
Sure.
Nicholson, though. I think we need to talk about that for a second. You know, at the time, I know because I went back and read reviews that came out at the time, and everybody said the same thing.
Mhm.
You know, he's over the top, you know, whatever. I have no idea. Like, I don't understand why
don't see
that's a
that.
criticism necessarily in this movie. His over the topness it's scary. It's because it is on the borderline of funny. It actually it to me it sort of occupies a kind of creepier space, because it's almost like the way, you know, like clown horror is, right? It's like, you know, it's like clown, okay, but he's doing something evil, right? And so and something about the way that they're doing it is giving you weird, like,
Well, clown horror doesn't really work in film either, really.
well, I'm just
I mean,
saying, like,
except for one, the film Dead of Night, but it's a ventriloquist dummy, not a clown. But
Oh.
similar idea, though.
I Dead of Night.
Oh my God, you got to see Dead of Night.
Oh,
It's
what's that?
British. It's a 1940s British horror film. But
Oh,
it's,
the guy who comes to the house and then they all have a
They
dream.
all have
about-
dreams.
I
Yeah,
have
yeah,
seen
yeah.
that. It's brilliant.
Oh my
Dead
God.
of Night, right?
And the last sequence with Michael Redgrave and the
That's
ventriloquist
right.
doll.
'Cause it's like a bunch of short pieces.
Nightmare
yeah.
fuel, 100%. Yeah.
That's a
Anyway.
good name for like an energy drink, maybe. Yeah, so I disagree with you.
Yeah,
on-
no, and I should have prefaced this by saying this is me, guys. Okay, like The Shining is acknowledged as one of Kubrick's greatest films.
It's a masterpiece.
It's acknowledged as a masterpiece, one of the greatest horror movies ever made. What do I know?
Well, listen, like
So,
that's the thing. Like,
There's only two people in the world who feel this way. It's me and Stephen King. Who also didn't like the film.
right, and his version was
His-
pure poop.
It was, oh yeah, my God, it was a piece of garbage.
It was poop.
Unwatchable.
Yeah, it was like
Unwatchable.
dog poop, basically.
Literally.
Yeah.
On the TV screen.
It's like when you get dog poop on your shoe. That's the same experience.
But then you can wipe it off.
But then the smell stays.
This movie,
Smell stays.
I wish I could wipe it out of my brain. I
Yeah,
wish
the
I could
lingering
Eternal
stink.
Sunshine the thing and just.
Yeah,
done with it.
exactly. Just a lobotomy. Maybe.
That's a good idea.
I can do that right now.
He has the tools, people.
Yes, I
can
do.
see
I have a
them.
pencil right here.
But yeah, no. Look. I'll credit. Yes, I get it that a lot of people, most people, think he's incredible in the film. His over the topness keeps taking me out, and I can't help watching it thinking the film would be more effective.
But so are you saying that you think he's going over the top in a way that takes you out because it's not believable to you?
No, it's not really believable.
See,
to
that
me.
that I find that. I mean, it's
But how do you know, right? I mean, it's a haunted house ghost story.
okay. Here's
times
here-
100,
Okay, here's what
so-
I've listened to everything you said,
Here it comes.
and this is my take on it. Okay.
Okay.
First of all, you're fucking crazy. Just want to get that one out of the way.
Okay.
But here's my psychoanalyzing of your full story here. I think you were so scared by The Shining, like so scared, like the way I was with The Exorcist, right? That it got into your head, and you had to find a way to diffuse it by criticizing it as a film.
I would say that about the novel. The novel scares the crap out of me. It still does.
There's things in it that
There's things about
personally
I would say it this
really
way.
scare you to death, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's certainly those themes are there in the film as well.
Right.
But I still find the movie fascinating. I find the way the film is art directed and
So beautiful. Yeah.
it's stunning to look at, but the way you can never know exactly where you are in the hotel.
Yeah, there's no
because
logical
and-
floor plan there. Yeah.
you know, if I had to pick a movie that I felt most influenced Kubrick for The Shining, it would be Last Year at Marienbad.
Oh, that's
And that sounds
interesting.
crazy, but similarly, the spa in Last Year at Marienbad, you are constantly on edge, not knowing where anything is. And when I saw that film back when I was in film school,
Mhm.
and I rewatched it about 3 or 4 years ago,
Mhm.
and it's like a horror film.
It is. Yeah.
It really is, especially when she's kind of
When it goes to white, like
Yeah.
when it goes right, zooms in on it, because you know that some incident, you start to piece it
something
together,
horrible is happening.
some kind of like a rape or something
Yeah.
happened, right? At this place last year at Marienbad.
And you're
right?
constantly moving through this spa hotel thing
It's all
without
constantly
knowing,
repeating. Yeah.
repeating. You don't know where you are. These figures come in and out that don't say anything, and they're just standing around.
They're
like
posed like manic, like
ex-
in tableaus.
yeah, it's incredible. It's an incredible film.
Oh, I love that movie
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Renee, yeah. So when I watch The Shining, I do think about that. I think, Kubrick made the decision to add this plot point that the hotel is on top of a Indian burial ground,
Right.
as they say in the film.
Right.
And I think that's interesting because it adds a layer of colonialism to the film. And, Kubrick was obsessed with the Holocaust and genocide.
Right.
And so he sort of works that into the film the way that,
Yeah. I mean,
these are rich
Well,
white
the
people who go to this hotel.
the elevator's full of blood, right? Like,
Yeah.
like
Exactly.
If that's one of the iconic images from there, and you
Mhm.
think, like, it's funny, like when you, like the reason why I think it's a masterpiece is that, and like there's been documentaries. I think you guys released one, right?
I would, for all the listeners out there, I highly recommend Room 237, a
Yeah.
great documentary about
Yeah,
that.
which was really, really good. I mean, but the point is that people are constantly talking about this movie because
Yep.
there's so much layered symbolism in it. You can watch it like 100 times and find new things in it, right? And that's the thing. It's kind of true with all of Kubrick's movies, right? But in The Shining especially, it seems, I think at the first time I saw it, I liked it way less. So it's the exact opposite, right? I thought it was just a weird
Well, that's the
scary movie.
trajectory of the life of the film. When the film opened in 1980,
Yeah.
it
was
didn't
like-
do that great.
Yeah.
It did fine, but critics were mostly negative.
Yeah.
It got pretty bad reviews overall.
Yeah.
And it been heavily cut since the first preview screenings.
Right.
And it's only over the years that it's gained its reputation.
Yeah, yeah, and you know that's the thing. Like I think you see it first, and it's like, okay, well, whatever. You know, it's mildly scary. You know, there's some jump scares, and it's weird, and but yeah, like what's going on? I am not sure what this movie's about. You know, maybe that's why, or maybe it seemed dull, like you said. I think that was my initial thing. Now that I've seen it like 40 times, you know, because it's on every Halloween and everything, right? You know, I never get tired of it now, you know, and it's a rare horror movie for me anyway, because if it scares me, I have difficulty revisiting it too much, right? But I can watch The Shining over and over again because again, it's so geometrical and kind of like weirdly, you're right.
There's
some kind of grid pattern going on there. There's the maze. There's something about
the symmetry that he uses in the film, going, you know, when the kids got the big wheel down the hallway, like, it's amazing.
I know, and that was like I think one of the very first uses of that kind of Steadicam.
Yep.
And people were like, how did he? Like I remember people talking about how did he get that shot of Danny on the big wheel, because the technology was so new, and basically they just put a guy on a Steadicam on another big wheel or another thing, and just went right, followed him all the way through.
Yeah,
right?
much like the maze scene at the end as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So you know, it's and you know I know what you mean about like it's funny because you know some people find that Frozen ending of whatever really funny, but I find it really, really scary.
Yeah.
And it's more the way it's not. I know what you mean by the look. It's kind of like he's like, you know, just seems kind of ridiculous, but it's the quickness of the edit, right? It's like just do a it's like he's all of a sudden it's an interesting choice for an edit. Like he didn't fade out to morning and then come and see him there. It's just a hard cut, right? And
or do what they cut out, which is, you know, they never find him, you know.
Yeah.
Because there's this coda at the end
where they go back in the book,
where, you know, Ullman.
Oh no, they cut that out.
No, in
right?
the movie they shot a whole ending where Ullman goes to see Wendy in the hospital, and she says, "Well, did you find his body in the maze?" And he goes, "No, there's no body."
Right. Yeah. Well, I guess they implied that with that, you know. You were always the
and then the last shot
picture,
of the film.
Yeah.
The last shot of the film is great, where he's in the picture. Yeah. No, I certainly don't hate the film. I have a lot of problems with it, but I still find it fascinating.
It is, and both films in a sense. So
I watch it probably every 5 years or so.
Yeah, that's the thing about Kubrick. He really was a singular, artist in cinema because he didn't make that many movies. First of all, right? All of them are good, right? I mean, you might like you know, like we're talking about some we like less, you know, and there's earlier ones that are not, like there's Killer's Kiss, which is you know.
I've never seen that one.
Yeah,
but The Killing was really good.
Paths
of Glory is
Paths of Glory is amazing. Spartacus is whatever. I don't love it, you know.
Well, I think Spartacus he didn't have that much control.
No, it's
more like not directed by Kirk Douglas, but it was.
I think
he was a director for hire, really.
He was because apparently he was brought in to replace Anthony Mann.
Yep.
Yeah. So it has more of an Anthony Mann feel than a Kubrick feel, right?
I don't think Anthony Mann shot anything though.
But it still has that epic, sort of biblical epic.
It's very
feel.
historical Hollywood.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's a very smart. Spartacus is a really interesting film, and
well, that's the
one.
The
script is incredibly intelligent. I think it's Gore Vidal.
Yeah. So I think he was hamstrung, you know, whatever. And that's the thing we forget about, you know, something like Lolita, right? A lot of those decisions were made because they had to be made that way, right? Otherwise the movie would not have been made, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think he was a really fascinating guy. I think the rest of his movies, I can't think of, like, all of them get better and better.
Like every great filmmaker, of course, has one or two stinkers, and Kubrick does not. I don't know.
There's not a stinker in the lot.
Not even close.
Yeah. I'm trying to think too. Like, was there anything?
I mean,
No.
Scorsese's made some bad films. Hitchcock made a couple of pretty mediocre
Yeah.
films.
Yeah. Yep.
Wells, like,
Yeah. Everybody has made some bad films, except him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
anyway.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
Okay. Well, do you want to wrap up with some talk about we're in Toronto because we do go to other countries besides Canada, so we have actually a bigger audience in the States.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. So we're in Toronto, and right now, I think starting next week is the Toronto
Starting
International
Thursday is the
Film Festival.
yeah.
Yay!
Wee.
So Tom, being a big buyer and distributor, is always really up on what's coming up. What do you got?
Well, I was just going to mention some like big buzz movies. I mean, the company I work for, Mongrel Media, we have 8 films playing at TIFF this year.
You have 8? Wow.
Yeah. Probably the one with the most buzz is Pedro Almodovar's new film.
Oh, yeah, right.
The Room Next Door, starring Julianne Moore and Tilda Swinton, which I have not seen.
Okay.
But what's remarkable about this one is it's his first English language feature.
Oh.
Right. So he had made 2 English language short films, which we also handled. The Human Voice with Tilda Swinton and Strange Way of Life, I think it's called. It's just like a Western.
Okay.
With Pedro Pascal and
Right.
Ethan Hawke.
Have you seen those?
Yep.
They're good?
Human Voice is great. I don't like to talk about our own films on this podcast, but they're short films and they're a few years old, so I will say, yeah, Human Voice is great. It's just Tilda Swinton in one apartment. That's the whole movie. Strange Way of Life, less successful, really, but it's interesting. It's stunning to look at.
Is he coming?
He's not, no, but Julianne Moore, Tilda Swinton, and John Turturro are coming.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah, but there's some really cool movies playing this year. Some of the ones that have more buzz than others. Saturday Night. This is Jason Reitman's, who's not a filmmaker I'm really a big fan of, but this is his film about Saturday Night Live. So it's about
Right. Yeah, I heard about that.
The days leading up to the making of the first episode. So
Yeah,
that's pretty.
that's a must see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna check it out for sure.
Yeah,
But
but it could super suck. You never know.
well, I'll let you know.
Okay. Well, I'll go see it myself, Mr.
All
Big
right.
Shot.
How
How about taking me along to
Well,
some of these?
Well, my
screenings?
buyer's pass only gets me 1 ticket. I'm sorry.
Well, can't you say like he's my date? And if anybody says anything, you just say, "What the fuck is wrong with you? Are you a
Yeah.
homophobe?" Say that.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, just play that card.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, another big buzz movie is called Queer. This is by Luca Guadagnino. So we did an amazing film of his many years ago called Call Me By Your Name,
Oh yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah.
starring Timothée Chalamet and the still canceled Armie Hammer.
Right.
But it's a fantastic film. And he
What was
also
his cancellation all about again? I can't remember.
I'll probably get this
Did
wrong.
he like
but
touch somebody, or he? Like,
I think it was like text and emails where it was harassing and saying he's going to eat somebody, and
Oh yeah, I
it was
remember
really
something
weird.
about.
And
this
then
now.
all this dirt came up about his family and the horrible things because he comes from a very wealthy family who are apparently all horrible people. But
like that Foxcatcher movie, like the
Yeah.
DuPont.
yeah, it was another one of our films actually. Yeah.
I think that's
Foxcatcher.
a very.
It's amazing.
I think it's a very very underrated movie.
Oh, it's fantastic.
And Steve
yeah.
Carell's performance was underrated.
Man, it's
He was-
terrifying.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
It's a great movie.
Yeah,
Oh, for sure. Channing Tatum is great. I mean, yeah.
it's just it really gets to the whole the sickness of the ultra wealthy.
Mhm.
That kind of creepy. Anyway.
Yeah.
we'll talk about
But yeah, so Queer is based on a Burroughs novel, and Daniel Craig.
Oh, the Burroughs novel, Queer,
yeah,
right?
yeah, and Daniel
Okay.
Craig stars.
Oh,
Guadagnino also made another his last film was quite good, called Challengers. I don't know if you saw that.
I haven't
He's
seen
in
that
it
one. No.
with Zendaya and Josh O'Connor.
Right. I kind of
Tennis players.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
love triangles kind of thing. And Edward Berger, the filmmaker behind All Quiet on the Western Front
Right.
remake, which I was not a big fan of, but
It was fine.
it was fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So his new film Conclave is playing, and this and Ray Fiennes is getting huge Oscar buzz right now.
Oh.
He plays guy who works at the Vatican. He's not the Pope, but he's I don't know what he is.
Secondary. Like,
Something like that.
assistant
Anyway,
pope.
the Pope suddenly dies, and they have to find a new Pope, and so it's all about the machinations in the Vatican around that.
Okay.
So that sounds really interesting. I really hope I get a chance to check it out.
Mhm.
The film that won the Palme d'Or at Cannes this year, Anora, which is by Sean Baker. Great filmmaker. He made, we did his last film called Red Rocket,
Oh yeah, I haven't
about the
seen that
porn
yet.
star
Yeah.
who ends up going back to his ex-wife and
Right. I want to see that.
causing a lot of problems. Yeah, it's great. And Florida Project.
Right. I haven't seen that one either.
That was really good too.
That one caused a lot of controversy when it came out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so did Red Rocket. Talk about your Lolita thing, but you'll.
Oh, I saw the Florida Project. I did. That's the one with Willem Dafoe in the motel.
Yeah.
That was a good movie.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was
a
good.
good movie. Yeah.
So his new film Anora won the Palme d'Or at Cannes, and it's about a very fast-moving relationship between the son of a Russian oligarch, I believe, and a stripper / prostitute,
Oh,
and how they quickly get married. But Mr. Oligarch isn't too happy about that.
Mr. Oligarch. Yeah.
So can't wait to see that one. And of course, Francis Ford Coppola's new film, Metropolis, which was hugely divisive. at
Yeah, I've
Cannes.
heard it's crappy, is what I heard.
Yeah, everyone I know who's seen it said it's crap.
It's like you
but
can't get through it, right?
Yeah, it's like unwatchable. But I mean, I cannot wait to see it. I'm so like.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch it too. It's
I
like-
won't see it at TIFF. They're not doing any buyer screenings, so
Oh, really?
yeah, just like one or two public screenings. But it
Wow.
opens in a few weeks.
You
or
should like
something.
maybe give it like a creative wine or something for every screening or something, so people
Well,
can see it.
I read that Coppola said in an interview that if the film doesn't work, he might lose a winery. So because he borrowed against it, and
He's always
crazy.
doing that,
I know.
crazy guy.
Cra-
Yeah,
What a guy, that
Yeah,
kooky Coppola dude.
but he's a real artist.
Two big buzz films I have actually seen. The Substance. This is a body horror kind of thing. I think it's opening Midnight Madness.
Oh,
So it takes place in this world where Demi Moore is an
really?
aging
She's back.
career best performance. Wow,
Wow.
she's incredible. And she takes this
That's not hard to do in her career. Though.
no, but I remember a few films I thought she was really good, but
She was great in Sophie's Choice.
So she takes this like treatment because she's a TV actor who's getting older, losing jobs, and what it does is it creates a younger version of you that actually comes out of your body. It's quite graphic
Ew.
and very bizarre.
Ew.
And that younger person is played by Margaret Qualley. I was not huge on the film. The film got great reviews at Cannes. I had a lot of problems with it, but it's a must. Like, you'll never see anything like it.
Okay.
It's huge buzz, and the reviews were great. So
Sub-
again,
the
much
sub-
like The Shining, don't listen to me.
Right. I never do. So
No, you don't.
no.
Nobody listens to me.
That's not true. I think you have great taste in movies, except for The Shining and $1 Million Baby. That's.
Oh, $1 million. We should talk. Yeah, we could.
I am not going to talk about the.
What about Clint Eastwood? We'll do a Clint Eastwood episode.
Yeah, we could do a Clint Eastwood episode. I would be into that.
Okay.
All right.
So there's another film called On Becoming a Guinea Fowl. That was excellent by Ragano Nioni, African filmmaker, and it was really, really powerful. And it's about in this small community. This woman finds that her uncle has died suddenly, hit by a car, I think. And then it starts coming out that he had been abusing, like, every young girl in the whole community, and and everybody knew it.
Right.
And so dealing with that. And
Wow,
it's
that
a
sounds
fascinating film. It's not as depressing as I make it sound. It's got a lot of humor in it. It's beautifully done. I
Right.
thought it was excellent. yeah.
Okay. Well, that's great.
And that'll come out in theaters. I
Right.
think A24 is handling it.
Oh, well, there you go.
So there you go.
Yeah. Well, that's lovely.
So there you go.
Yeah.
It should be an interesting
So
festival.
I mean, yeah, sounds like you're gonna have a good time. I'll have a good time
It's a
here.
lot of work.
Just lying down on the couch watching movies.
Oh,
Um,
come to our party.
okay, maybe I will. And then I'll get arrested, I'm sure.
I'll make sure of it.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was a fun one.
Yeah.
Tom, you're nuts.
Thank you.
Please
I know.
watch The Shining again. Until you get it, I order you to watch it every day until you actually get it.
Then you'll turn into Jack Nicholson.
Exactly.
All right. Great.
All right.
Well, thank you very much, and we'll see you out there in the dark.